Good afternoon and welcome to the mill. Welcome to our first episode of Chaotic Clarity podcast. My name is Dawn. I am a salon owner, a mum of three, and this is...
Hi, I'm Freya. I'm a clinical psychologist. I have been working in neurodiversity services pretty much my whole career. So I'm absolutely delighted to hopefully share some tips and tricks and strategies with you today, as well as our own personal stories.
Well, I'm very excited and I'm a little bit nervous.
I think that's just perfectly normal, Dawn. I think we're going to be a little bit nervous, a little bit excited, and we're going to explore a really important topic today.
Yeah. So today, folks, we are covering overwhelm.
Indeed.
So Freya, I'm going to ask the questions because you are the expert and I am going to be the asker. So Freya, tell us, what is overwhelm?
It's a really, really great question, Dawn. And so when I meet with people who are talking about their feelings, how I like to describe overwhelm is using a metaphor about a kind of like, so if you imagine a really big jug and you're starting to pour water into that jug, and you can pour water into a big jug for a really long time before it overfills. Yeah. Now let's say the jug is our life and we start to put things in it. So maybe, if we imagine a big stone put in it, and that represents the fact that we didn't have a really good night's sleep. Let's put another one in there that says one of our children is sick at the moment. Let's put another one in there that means that maybe we've got a really tight deadline at work that we're working towards. Maybe we put another one in there that our family members are kind of going through a rough time, that we're also supporting them. Maybe we put another one in there that our neighbour's not doing very well either. We've had to go and do their shopping for them. Yeah. Maybe we put another one in there that we're having a decorating done in our house, so our house is a mess at the moment. So suddenly, if you can imagine, this jug is suddenly filled with lots of different stones, lots of different stresses in our life. So if we then take the just daily stream of life, would be that water pouring it in, suddenly, because we've got all of those other things in it, that overwhelm, that overflow is going to happen so much quicker. Yeah? So if we imagine a completely empty one, we can pour water in that for a long time before it overfills. When we're overwhelmed, it's because there's so many things in our jar that we're holding on to, that when any other little bit of additional pressure comes onto us, we feel really overwhelmed. And that's when the water spills over, we feel overwhelmed. And for a lot of neurodivergent people, that can either result in either a meltdown or a shutdown. And I know we're going to talk a little bit more about that today.
Yeah, I love a visual, Freya. That's really good. And for people that aren't even watching us, I think that was a great description, and they won't even need to be watching us. So why do neurodivergent people, I don't want to say suffer is the word, struggle, like what's the right terminology for me to use, but why do neurodivergent people suffer / struggle more with overwhelm?
So they might experience overwhelm a little bit more because they are often, neurodivergent individuals are constantly trying to fit into a neurotypical world. So they're trying to fit into a world that necessarily hasn't been designed for them or around them. So let's just take the sensory world, for example, Dawn. So if I just go into a typical restaurant as a neurotypical person, I might not really notice anything particularly about that restaurant, just kind of the regular things that are around me. Now, if I go in as a neurodivergent person, I might notice the smells that are around. I might notice the conversations of every other person in there. I might notice how much more people are moving around. So automatically, my sensory needs are kind of already at an overwhelm level because there's so many more things that my brain is processing. Okay. Then we add another layer to that. So imagine social sort of expectations that are going on around us. Again, as a neurotypical person, I might go into a conversation thinking, oh, I know how to do social chit chat. It's lovely to see my friend. It's super easy to have a conversation. As a neurodivergent person, I might be going into it. Maybe if I've got more ADHD brain, I might be going into it thinking, don't interrupt. I've got to listen. I've got to look like I'm listening. Might be also thinking, oh gosh, don't overshare. Last time I overshared. So I could be thinking all of these additional things whilst also trying to have a conversation with you. Conversely, maybe if my brain's more wired to be an autistic brain, I might be thinking, oh gosh, I've got to be looking at you in the eye, or at least pretending to look you in the eye. I'm wondering if I'm smiling in the right places. Do I look interested enough? Yeah, so already we're adding these additional layers onto kind of what should be a very typical experience, going to a restaurant and meeting a friend. Yeah. Then maybe let's add another thing in. We like life to be predictable. We like to know what's happening next. maybe the restaurant has got a change of menu on that we weren't expecting, maybe our friend's a little bit late. So all of these things can add on to it. So suddenly we are feeling this overwhelming sort of anxiety, worry, discomfort because of all the other things that we're having to process.
Yeah, that's interesting that you said that actually, because I actually met a friend last week who I love, and in a restaurant, and it was so overwhelming. And I had to go to the toilet for about 10 minutes. I had to just sit and breathe. And then also, I'd really like to ask you coping mechanisms as well, because breathing gets me out of it eventually. Is
Yep.
that the same for everyone? I mean, everyone's going to have their own things that bring them back down. But so you think that when I was in a restaurant, it was just a lot of sensory and I suppose, yeah, a lot
Yeah.
going on and a lot to think about, and it was a
Yeah.
new place, and
Definitely. Think of
yeah,
all the expectations that were
yeah,
put on you that day. So, oh gosh, I'm meeting a friend. So you might have been excited. We also know neurodivergent people feel their emotions much more intensely. So again, might be feeling that excitement a little bit more. You might also feeling a little bit more nervous. You're
yeah,
going to a new place. You maybe don't know what to expect. You don't know what it's going to look like. You
yeah,
don't know, all of these things. You don't quite know what you're going to talk to your friend about. So that's unpredictable. You've got the layers of sensory that are going on. So, yeah, there can be those number of things. So I think you did exactly the right thing.
yeah,
Something I would 100% recommend people to do. When you are feeling overwhelmed, sometimes we can almost feel like no, I'm going to stick it out. I'm going to just stay here and stick it out. And,
yeah,
I'll kind of get through it. I'll grit my teeth and get through it.
yeah,
And we just feel more and more overwhelmed by that.
mm,
Actually, the best thing you did in that situation was take yourself away, go and do some breathing exercises, which we know are going to be really helpful. So we know that when our bodies are in that state of overwhelm, we kind of go into that fight or flight. And when we're in fight or flight, we breathe quicker, our muscles get tense, we get hot. All of those things are out of our control. Yeah, we can't help it. It's just how our bodies are worked.
yeah,
But if when you go to the bathroom or go and stand outside or go and do some deep breathing, we can almost trick our bodies into thinking that we're calm. So
yeah,
by doing that deep breathing, you did a beautiful job of kind of going to your body, right, we're safe,
yeah,
we're okay.
mm-hmm.
We've taken some of that sensory noise or social expectations away. We can do that breathing and then, right, okay, I'm ready to go back in and kind of deal with that. So really well done, Dawn. That's a brilliant strategy.
Luckily, my friend knows me well, and I told her, but not. You can't always, you're not always in that position, are you?
No, definitely
To be
not.
open with the people that you're with. So
Yeah.
luckily, my friends are amazing. Can I ask you about meltdowns?
You can do, yeah.
So what's the difference between meltdowns and overwhelm? Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So I like to think of meltdown is when you get to the point when you can't take any more. So that time, if we go back to our jug analogy, the time when the water overflows, that for me is a meltdown.
Yeah.
And I suppose you can either see it, generally neurodivergent people try to kind of, when they have that experience, it goes one of two ways. So you might have a meltdown, which in my mind is very sort of explosive.
Yeah.
It's the very much, it's behaviors that are kind of like really externalized. So you'd see a lot of things like you might see shouting, you might see crying, storming about, throwing things. It's very kind of external because you're just kind of melting down. You're kind of like getting all of that out of you. But then the opposite of that is a shutdown. And that's when, again, everything is overwhelming. That's very internal. And that's when you sort of feel, you just want to be on your own. So you might reach through your bedroom. You might, hide under a blanket. It's when sometimes a lot of neurodivergent people talk to me, it's like they can't even speak because they just feel so overwhelmed. So it's when everything sort of starts to shut down. And those things actually, when they're happening to us, whether it be the meltdown or the shutdown, it's actually, again, it's kind of, you don't have much control over it. So if somebody says to you during one of those episodes, oh, it's all right, just cheer up, it'll be all right, or oh, you know what, you just need to try a little bit harder. Actually, we know you can't at that point. We know you're at your maximum capacity of trying to cope and get through a situation.
Yeah. Oh, this is so interesting. So breathing, we know, and also we know as neurodivergent females, Freya, that we feel our emotions more than maybe neurotypical people, which I actually didn't realise. I thought everyone felt really big emotions and that they could just cover it better than me, or they could handle it better than me. But it's actually, I was happy to find out that it's a neurodivergent thing, that emotions are huge.
Definitely, they are huge. And the other thing, not only are they huge,
Yeah.
but actually the sort of lead up to big emotions is different in neurodivergent people compared to neurotypical people. So if you imagine a neurotypical person who might be getting a little bit ticked off,
Yeah.
they might be, oh, you know, a little bit annoyed. Oh God, and then this has really frustrated me. And then, oh, this has really annoyed me. And you can kind of see that they kind of get to a point before they get to the sort of like 10 out of 10. This is like, you know, too much. But actually, for neurodivergent people, they don't go through that nice curve. They actually go from 0 to 10 super, super quick. So you might be like, actually, I'm really, really calm. Everything's fine. And maybe I might not process some of the emotional triggers, but might be going into my body.
Yeah.
So maybe a neurotypical person might be like, oh, I'm starting to get a little bit hot. That means I'm getting a little bit annoyed, or I'm starting to get butterflies in my tummy. That might be getting a little bit anxious.
Yeah.
A lot of neurodivergent people don't always process those things. So getting butterflies in my tummy, I might be like, oh, actually, I'm a bit hungry. So I might not realize I'm getting really anxious until the point I'm really, really anxious.
Yeah.
So that feeling of kind of going from 0 to 100 can happen really, really quickly.
Yeah.
And you also, as a neurodivergent person, can take a longer time to kind of come down from that as well. So coming back to our topic today about overwhelm. So imagine you're just about coming down from something that's been really, really difficult.
Yeah.
Again, because you're coming down so much slower, if something else like triggers you or cues you, then you're going to go back up there really, really quickly as well. Now, the positive side of that is you can feel your positive emotions really well as well.
Yeah.
So as everything, and I know you and I are going to talk about this so much on Chaotic Clarity, we will talk about the challenges and the barriers, but we'll always talk about the celebrations as well.
Absolutely. That's what we're here for.
Indeed. And I can't think of, a better experience to when you feel big emotions, to be able to feel big happiness or feeling big excitement. So again, there's always some good bits about that neurodiversity side of things as well.
Absolutely. Sometimes life can just be so good that it makes you cry.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Just from nowhere, you just think, I'm so happy. And then I could just cry.
Yeah. I love that. I love the intensity of that moment.
It's very intense. Can you tell us, Freya, a personal experience of overwhelm that you have?
I can, definitely. I've definitely experienced times of overwhelm throughout my life, throughout my career. So if I think about a time when I've got multiple deadlines at work, so I might have different things that are coming at me. I might have to, I'm thinking about a specific time now. As the example I gave with my jug, I was having my home redecorated at the time. I had my pet, who I'm sure we will talk about Harry Pickle numerous times on the podcast.
The famous Pickle.
He was extremely important to me, was unwell. And all of those different things kind of were piling up.
Big rocks.
Lots of big rocks. And there wasn't that time to kind of stop and breathe. And I didn't give myself that time to stop and breathe. And I could feel it kind of getting bigger and bigger. And I didn't really ask for help at that time either. I just kind of plowed on. And actually, one of the things that kind of when I felt that overwhelm is kind of that almost experience of being somewhere and kind of having all of these things in your mind, not being able to cross them off, not being able to fix them, just kind of feeling, I'm almost like that your head is full of bees. That's the best way I can describe when I feel overwhelmed. Is my head is full of bees and I can almost feel it buzzing. And for me, I tend to go into that more shutdown mode. So just retreating from things, and kind of going to just kind of shutting down and not being able to function as well. And that can just be too much. So that for me is what I'm trying to do. Sometimes I do it really well. Sometimes I don't do it so well. We're all human. Is try to catch some of those things early so I can recognize when it's beginning to build, rather than it just kind of being overwhelming. What about you, Dawn? Tell us about one of yours.
I've had one this morning.
Okay.
Freya. I have them actually most days, but this morning was a new one. I was waiting for an important phone call from one of my children's teachers regarding something that was a little bit sensitive, and when the phone went, the panic, I didn't know what to say. I didn't know how to word what I wanted to say. Obviously it wasn't an argument or anything like that. It was just I had to talk about something that was important, and luckily the signal lost and actually the phone went off, but I was having a full-blown panic attack. And I had to just like walk outside and just pace, just calm myself down again, breathe, Dawn, breathe. And then luckily Steve, my husband, my hero, came in and like sorted the call out for me. But crazy. And sometimes there's nothing you can do. If you've just, like you say, if there's rocks in that jug and then one more rock can just overspill and There's nothing you
Exactly.
can do, is there? Just
No.
write the day off, I say.
I was going to say so if we're thinking about strategies, and I know
Yeah.
we're going to talk about actionable strategies today because we
Yeah.
want to give our listeners some, some tricks and tips and
Yes,
things to manage these
absolutely.
things.
Yeah.
So one of the biggest things I would say around overwhelm is be kind to yourself. So,
Oh God, absolutely.
any other day, Dawn, you may have been able to manage that phone call beautifully well.
Yeah.
But today, for whatever reason, actually it just felt too much. Maybe
Yeah.
it was the emotional content, maybe it was something that was going on.
Yep.
For women, it could be even hormones.
Oh God, hormones, definitely.
All of these things. So
Yeah.
being kind to yourself. So you could have, after that phone call, really beat yourself up about it and going, oh gosh, I'm so rubbish. I can't do these things. I'm really, really rubbish. Oh, I've just failed again. And then that could be snowball, and that could take you down the route of more overwhelm. But actually what you did is kind of went, well, these things happen.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm going to forgive myself. I'm going to be kind to myself. And that's okay.
Yeah.
And I think for me, that's one of the biggest strategies that, I would like our listeners to kind of think about. If they have experienced like a shutdown or a meltdown or some sort of overwhelm that they might have a different name for it, is afterwards be really kind to yourself.
Yeah.
What do you need to do to look after yourself after you've had that experience?
Yeah.
So obviously we'll also talk about some proactive strategies as well. You've already mentioned breathing.
Yeah.
What else do you do that works really well for you?
So the only thing I can think right now is, obviously I'm a hairdresser. So when people are sat in my chair, it's their therapy time. They all say it. And I know for when people talk to me, we've got hair loss from stress and stuff, or some people could just sit in my chair and they're overwhelmed or they burst into tears, and it's a safe place. They are welcome to do all of that. And they don't know where it's coming from. I don't know why I'm so overwhelmed. And what I say to them is, let's just write down what you've been through in the last year. When you write it down, because they tell me everything so I can relay it back to them, and they forget. It could be losses, it could be job issues, it could be financial issues. And when I say it back to them, they go, bloody hell, when you say it back to me, Dawn, it's crazy. So I kind of do that to myself as well. Like, just breathe. What's gone on in the last week, Dawn, or the last month, and then, like you say, be kind to yourself.
Yeah.
Remember what we're all going through.
Definitely.
And chill.
Yeah. I love that.
Chill.
Just chill. I love that.
Get up a mountain.
Yeah, I love the fact that you by writing it down, you can really recognize what is actually going on.
Yeah.
Brilliant idea. Another thing that I'd like to talk about when we're thinking about strategies is sensory breaks as well. So we've talked a lot about sensory experiences which can lead to overwhelm. So sometimes I say to people, maybe have like a sensory box if you're feeling overwhelmed, or a sensory thing that
like fidget.
Exactly, yeah. So you can have lots of different things in that sensory box. So for example, everybody will be different. So if you're somebody who really gets chilled out from smelling things, you might have some smelling things in there, like really nice candles or essential oils. If you're somebody who, when you're kind of getting to meltdown, you kind of like to scream and break things, you might have fabric in there that you can rip. You might have whatever really makes you going to help you process that overwhelm. And you can have that box in a place that is really easy to access, so you can go and grab it if you're feeling that in a certain way. It's got those things in that can calm you down, that can help bring that overwhelm down. So again, having that and really thinking about, so coming back to writing down things, maybe sit down and think, okay, what would I like in my sensory box? What would I like to have to be able to access when I'm feeling really overwhelmed? What can I grab to to put in to kind of make all of those things, that when I'm feeling at my worst, I can just go and grab that box and it's got some of my favorite things in. For me personally, another strategy that I have is watching something that I love and that I know. So it wouldn't be something new. It would be a favored television program. So again, I don't need anything new. I don't need anything to kind of tax my brain. I want something that's going to be predictable,
safe,
that's safe. So again, another lovely strategy is, if you are having those times of overwhelm, schedule times in your day that you can do something that is going to be predictable. It might be a lovely walk that you've been on several times before, watching a favorite TV program that you've watched, many times before. And again, that can be really helpful at kind of just regulating your nervous system.
And obviously we are grown-ups. Well, that's the rumour. But poor children, when they're in school, like, they don't always have these lovely ideas. They don't always have the space or the time to be able to do any of this, and that must be absolutely awful.
Yeah, and also if we think about children, they don't always have the vocabulary either.
No.
They don't necessarily understand the feelings going on in their body,
Mm.
the vocabulary to express how they're feeling. So one of the things that I think is really helpful is to, when you're talking to your child about emotions, is, well, there's two different things that I would start to think about. Is one is modeling. So as an adult, I would kind of describe that and say, maybe if I was walking around my house and a child was watching me, I might say something like, "Oh, I've lost my keys. Oh, I can feel myself getting a little bit angry now because I've lost my keys.
Mm.
Oh gosh, I still haven't found them. Now I'm getting worried that I'm going to be late." So I'm labeling those emotions so they can see that those emotions are okay,
Yeah.
and they can kind of begin to understand what I'm meaning.
Mm.
But also you can use other things as well. So some children, might respond better to descriptive ways of like using colors to talk about emotions. So, I'm in a red zone because I'm really angry.
Yeah.
Or use other things. So I worked once with an autistic young person who was absolutely wonderfully and beautifully obsessed with washing machines.
Mm.
And he would talk about his emotions like washing machines.
Yeah.
So this is a fast cycle. So I'm really, really angry because I'm a fast cycle. Oh, I'm feeling really chilled out. I'm on a wool cycle today. Yeah.
Oh, I
So
love that.
really, really beautiful ways. So think of ways either for yourself as an adult,
Mm.
or, if you're talking to your children
Yeah.
about emotions, think of ways that are going to make sense for you and for
Yeah.
them.
The creativity. I love that.
Yeah.
I think I always find that neurodivergent people, the way of thinking is so different and creative. It's mega, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, so fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. Obviously, is that part of overwhelm as well? Does overwhelm put us into that fight and flight state?
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's all related to our nervous system,
Yeah.
our parasympathetic and our sympathetic nervous system. So if we think back to our evolutionary past,
Yeah.
years and years and years and years ago, if we imagine us as cave people,
Mm-hmm.
and a saber-toothed tiger jumps into us,
Yeah.
we are going to have to run really, really quick to get away from the tiger, which means our muscles are going to have to be really strong. Means we're going to have to breathe really quickly to get loads of oxygen in. Our heart's going to be pumping. We might need to go to the loo, so we're as light as we can to run away. All of those things are our kind of like adrenaline response.
Yeah.
Same with the freeze response as well. So if you think about fight or flight, so if you're then going to fight the saber-toothed tiger, either you're going to run away or do that. So you've got that. And then your freeze is actually, I'm just going to stay still because I'm that frightened. I can't move. And then you've got all of that. So that's our nervous system trying to process all of that with all of that evolutionary history kind of, backing us up. Our bodies haven't changed that much in all of those millions of years. We still have that kind of in our DNA and in our bodies. Yeah. So again, that's why breathing can work really well.
Yeah.
Because it tricks our body into thinking we're calm. And the other thing is like progressive muscle relaxation. So again, if our muscles are really tense because we're overwhelmed, if we want to start squeezing them and relaxing them, again, our bodies start going, oh, if our muscles are relaxed, we must be safe.
Yeah.
We must be calm.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's lots of things that we can do to harness that fight or flight response that's related to overwhelm to kind of help our bodies work through it.
That's really interesting. Thank you. So shall we end on some tips? So I know we've already gone through some. So if somebody can't leave the room, if they're in I don't know, on a train or a plane, or if like a teenager's in uni or in a class or whatever, what would be the best tips, do you think, Freya? What would you recommend?
It's a really good question. So I would do a little bit of almost like a mental check-in in my head. So if I was in a room or a place that I couldn't get out of and I started to feel really, really overwhelmed, I might sort of start to go, right, okay, I need to do this mental check. What's going on? What's kind of like, what's happening for me right now? Oh, all of these things. And I might start to check them off to allow myself to be kind to myself. I might do some deep breathing. So again, I could do breathing kind of like counting that can really help me. Might try to distract myself by looking at some of the things around me. There's another lovely exercise that you can do that helps kind of cue your brain into sort of some mindfulness. So if you're really struggling with everything else around you, you can do what we'd call hand tracing. So you can put your finger on your hand and you can kind of go around your hand like this, and you just pay really close attention to like the tickly bits, how it feels, rather than being overwhelmed by everything else around you. You can just really pay attention to kind of like how your hand feels, and you can do that as quick or as slow as you want.
That's lovely.
Great thing is you always got your hands with you. You don't have to worry about that sensory box, which is wonderful if you've got it, or you're at home, definitely. But other things you've got with you, you've always got your breath with you, you've always got your hands to do that. And then the other thing is, I always think about ask for help. You know,
Yeah.
don't just sit and suffer in silence. So like you were
Yeah,
able to share with
absolutely.
your friend.
Yeah.
But you know, if you're in a situation where you're at college, you might need to talk to a tutor, you might need to talk to, you know, a mentor, you might need to think about, you know, talk to a friend, a partner. But yeah, don't just suffer in silence and think, you know, don't just bite down and kind of get, oh, I've got to get through this. Actually start talking to somebody and say, do you know what, actually, I'm feeling really overwhelmed right now.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. Can we maybe explore this together? Or I'm feeling overwhelmed because I know exactly what it is and I need somebody to take something off me. Because sometimes as well, you know, coming back to our jugs, not all of the stones in our jug are ours. You know, sometimes we might be looking after, like I said, a sick neighbour.
Yeah.
We might be going shopping for them. We might be cleaning their house for them. But actually, that could be something we could give to our sick neighbour's daughter, who actually, you know, that isn't our problem to be solved.
Yeah.
So sometimes we might think, you know, this isn't my stone to hold on to. I'm going to give this to somebody else. That's their stone. So I don't have to be overwhelmed by. I don't have to take the weight of the world.
Yeah.
One of my favourite sayings somebody always tells me is, Freya, you don't have to boil the ocean.
I like that.
And I always want to boil the ocean.
I know, now I want to boil the ocean. How are we going to boil the ocean, Freya?
Exactly. One bucket at a time, Dawn.
Oh, that's fascinating. I could talk about this for 5 hours with you, but we're not going to, because we need to save our energy for podcast number 2.
We do.
I've had fun. Thank you. Our first podcast completed. Thank you, Freya. That was super interesting. I'm so excited for our next podcast. Yeah, so we're never going to be perfect. We are here to be relatable. Yeah. We are here to be authentic.
Definitely. We will always bring some chaos to your clarity, and we'll always bring some clarity to your chaos.
Mm-hmm. And for those who don't know yet, Freya is the clarity and I am the chaos.
I think we'll take it in turns, Dawn. Yeah, I think we'll take it in turns. So yeah, we'll see you next time.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.